I have to tell you, I just was laughing so much because I'm going to be introducing in about 2 minutes Teri Ralston, who has got the jazziest person in the world. And to introduce her, I said, I'm going to introduce her. She started to do a little number. So before we even do anything else, and I ask her any questions, here is Teri Ralston, do a little number.
I was just saying, you want some jazz? I don't do jazz, actually. I like ballads better.
It's so funny. And the thing that I wanted her to talk about, which kills me, and you can tell me if this is true or not. She got Little Night Music, the Broadway show, Little Night Music. And then somebody offered her Annie Get Your Gun in a summer stock company, and she left the Broadway show, Little Night Music, to do Annie Get Your Gun. To me, I mean, if you have any idea what it feels like to want to desire to do that kind of work, I'm going to let her tell you about it, but she'll tell you more specifically how it happened. So please be more specific than I am. What happened?
Well, I was very young. I mean, would I make that decision later in life? Probably not, but I don't regret it. I'll just back up a little bit just to say how it all happened.
Yeah. You can tell about when you came to New York and all of that stuff and who you are and everything else, but we want to come to this eventually.
Oh, yeah, no, I'll try not to. I'll try to be brief.
Oh, don't
Okay, well, I was in San Francisco State going to college, San Francisco State University. I got in a show called Your Own Thing.
Oh, yeah.
And the director, Rudy Toronto, who was directing me in it, was doing the other productions around and about. There was one in Philadelphia. And I don't know if anyone remembers Skipper Damon, but she was doing it in Philadelphia, and she was leaving. So I think I have that right. Anyway, so it was in Philadelphia, and I thought, oh yeah, I'd like to get back there and know the East a little bit because I was a California girl. So I went into the production there, and then I went very naive. It was the year I graduated from college.
So you're 22,
probably. 22. I probably 22. And
also you're from California, and you're kind of you're not a New York baby.
Oh, I was not sophisticated at all, at all. I mean, I was born in Holyoke, Colorado. You don't get more unsophisticated than that. And I'm grateful for those first 12 years of my life that were very basic. But I went in very naive, obviously, very green, and I saw Jacques Brel is alive and well and living in Paris, and so I had no idea better. Oh my God, I have to do that show. I love that show. I have to do it. So I had a program. I called the stage manager, and not knowing any better, and I said, I would like to audition for this. Oh. Well, he got me an audition, and I got it. So
you mean off-Broadway?
Yeah. Yeah, I did the thing, and then it was doing with Ellie Stone, and I mean, yeah.
You did the one with Ellie Stone?
Yeah, the original. I was with the original.
Oh my God, I had no idea.
Yeah,
I think I saw you then.
Well, maybe. I mean, actually, Ellie had left it by that point. It was Betty Rhodes, I believe. And I was doing the second part, but then when it went to L.A., Ellie Stone did it, and then I was girl number 2, but I was on in the first role a lot. Anyway, I was doing that in California, and I met George Firth at a nightclub because we were seeing a mutual friend, and he said, are you an actress? We sat next to each other, and I said, yeah. And he said, well, I've written a show that I think you're right for, which happened to be Company. And, again, oh, yeah, well, I took that with a grain of salt, Who is this guy? Well, I don't know. So I said, well, if you want to see me, I mean, I wasn't like bragging about it, but I said, well, if you want to see me perform, you can come see me do Jacques Brel. So he did the next day, and then I found out later that he wrote a letter to Hal Prince and said, I just found Jenny.
Oh my
golly. So I ended up going back to New York and back into the Jacques Brel off Broadway, and I get a call to audition for company. So I went and auditioned, mind you, not knowing any of this other stuff had happened, but I auditioned and I got a call back, and then George Firth called me and said, "You got it." And I mean, I had no idea the significance of that. No idea. Oh, that's exciting. You know, I mean, I don't mean I took any of this for granted. I just didn't know what it would lead to. So, you know, I did company for a year on Broadway, and then I did it 6 months in California, and then I did it in London. And
now, Jenny is which one? Give me
the pot smoking wife.
Oh, yeah.
Kiss my ass, you son of a bitch. That's one of my favorite lines. And, you know, I when I got back from doing it in California, they were working on a little night music. And they were, well, actually, no, I'm sorry, when I got back from London, they were working on it. And Hal had said, you know, you're my favorite all-American cheerleader, but I want a little night music to be very European. So, you know, I wasn't going to be in it. So then they had to do backers auditions because the record, you know, they had lost money with Follies.
Oh, I can't believe they lost money with Follies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had lost money. So they had to do backers auditions for the record companies to get a record company to pick up on, to, you know, produce a little night music. So, again, I mean, I was pretty thrilled about this, but either Hal or Steve Sondheim called me and said, it's probably Hal, would you do the backers auditions with Steve? So,
with Steve Sondheim?
Yeah.
You mean he'd sing and you'd sing?
Yeah. and not only that, I went to his apartment and would learn this stuff. I mean, I was the first person to hear this stuff as he played it for Hal. And, you know, we went there. I don't mean we went there a lot, but we were there, you know, a few times. And this one time we went and Hal was his, you know, he drove him, you know, he really pushed Steve because Steve, as he self-admitted, was a procrastinator. So we went there and Steve met us at the door and says, "I haven't written the song you want. I haven't written the song," because Hal was trying to get him to write the song for Carl Magnus and he was having trouble writing it. He said, "But I wrote a lyric I really like." So he sat down at the piano. He had been up like all night and he wrote this one line that he loved. So he sat down at the piano and he played "You Must Meet My Wife."
Oh no, you must be my wife.
And when he got to she saves the cigar butt, bizarre, but you're joking. I mean, that line, and when he did, he just broke into this smile. It was the whole phrase thing. And I love that he, you know, just enjoyed something he wrote. Mm-hmm. So after, you know, I had been doing these backers auditions.
For record companies, too.
Yeah, we did it for the record companies.
Oh,
yeah.
My God.
Yeah, I mean, Steve would do, and then at some point along the way, Hal called me and he said, "Well, we have decided to add this element in the show, the Liebeslieders."
Yeah.
And he said, "We'd like you to be in it." So he offered it. Now, I still think about this. And I literally said, because I had just been doing company for, well, almost 2 years by the time I did it in London and everything. And I thought, you know, I don't want to just do another long run. And
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to know something.
I was
Anytime
22 years
they want
old.
me to do a long run, I shall do a long run. This is very interesting. This is what always amazed me about Teri, but go on.
Oh, no, probably now I was 24, maybe 20, you know. So, but I still was very green, you know. And I told Hal, I said, "Well, let me think about it." And then I agreed to do it, but I wanted an out. So this is leading up to the story you started with. So I said, I'd love to be through the creative process, but I don't want to do it for a long time. So
I mean, this is just the most.
I know, it's
amazing
bizarre.
thing.
It's bizarre. and I
But he must have understood because of how much work that you did for them. He must have understood you.
I mean, I mean, my whole life has been, my whole career, my whole adult life, well, that's not my whole life, but my whole adult career has been around Steve Sondheim and how, say, particularly I've done, oh gosh, I don't know how many shows of his. I mean, I've either directed or been in,
Really?
Yeah. But anyway, so that's what happened. Hal, which was unheard of, he gave me a 3-week out, and we opened it. And so in the summer, it was going well, and I was offered Annie, Get Your Gun for 2 weeks in my hometown of Laguna Beach, and I really wanted to do that role. So I gave notice and went to California for 2 weeks. But then what I wanted to do, and I was blessed with being able to do it, I thought, I know this sounds so weird, and I don't mean it egotistically or anyway. Again, I never take any of this for granted. But I said, I've never done regional theater or stock, and I want to grow as an actress. Because right out of college, I went into a Broadway show. So that's exactly what I did for maybe the next 2 years.
So you got the out, and he didn't want you to come back again.
Well, I didn't ask to come back. I just left. I mean, it was stupid. It was stupid. I should have asked. But the point was I wanted to then go do regional theater and stock. So I didn't want to come back to it. I didn't ask to come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now I look at it and say, oh boy. But you know what? I grew. I learned so much. I think I then went to the Actors Theater of Louisville and worked in regional theater. And I did my first directing job there. They wanted to do Jacques Brel.
Mm-hmm.
And John Jury said, I'd like to do Jacques Brel, and I'd like you to come back and do it. And again, I said, well, I'll do it, but I want to direct it. So
it's wonderful being innocent.
Innocent, exactly.
Really wonderful because
exactly.
Some other people would say, "Oh, how could you do that?" But the point is,
I didn't know any better.
You didn't know any better, right? And the great part about it was you weren't doing it in a nasty way because if you were, they would have said, "Screw you," but they didn't. They were interested in this young person.
Well, I felt I knew how to do it. I had such a good education at San Francisco State and in directing as well. And I knew Jacques Brel so well, and I had some really good ideas about it. And so John had me direct it. I was the first female director at Actors Louisville. They never had a female.
Isn't that fun?
But then that started me also teaching. I was teaching at the University of Louisville or whatever. And I started teaching voice there. And again, I hadn't done it. So I charged very little money and I taught myself how to teach voice,
from the way you do it. I mean, the way you sing.
The voice training I had, but also knowing what it felt like and what needed to be. And I had been given a wonderful breathing technique that I still teach today. Is absolutely magic. And so, I grew on that, and I did regional theater, and I did my first summer stock. I went up to Vicki Crandall's, and I did Maria in Sound of Music.
Perfect
I did
Fiona, for her, ladies and gentlemen.
And Fiona in Brigadoon, and Sally Bowles in Cabaret. So I got all this training, and I grew, and I felt I became, I became a stronger, So right. I can't look back and say I regret that I made those decisions.
But you said you worked a lot with Stephen. What other things did you do?
Oh gosh, okay. Well, let's see.
Did you do Assassins?
No, I didn't do Assassins, but I did the first Big Follies. Sally was my favorite role.
Fussing around with our hair, giggling, wriggling out of our tights, chattering and clattering down all of those flights.
The first one that they did after, it was at San Jose Civic Light Opera, and I did it opposite Harvey Evans. He played my buddy, who was the young buddy, and so he was the old buddy. I did that. I've directed Into the Woods in California at the university there. I've done.
And would you talk to Stephen when you were directing?
No, I got help from him. Let's see. I directed a production of A Little Night Music.
Oh, boy. Oh.
I mean, I communicated with him, but no, I didn't hang out with him. We definitely stayed in touch over the years, and I was at social things with him.
By the way, did you, when you were singing for the companies and everything, did you sing Send in the Clouds, the first one?
Oh, sure.
You were the first person to sing it.
Oh, no, because Send in the Clowns came in very late in the rehearsals.
Oh.
No, that came in very late. He watched a scene that between Glennis Johns and Len Cario. The song he was trying to write was for Len, and he saw the scene the way it was being played, and he went home and wrote "Send in the Clowns," and then told Hal, saying, it's her scene. This is what, and so it was very late in rehearsals when the Clowns came.
It was so touching with that voice of hers that was.
Oh, I know.
It was so wonderful. And then, of course, Hermione Gingold. Was that when you were singing for the?
Well, Hermione was the original.
I know, but when you were selling it to the companies, were you singing that part?
No. No, I sang the young stuff, and Clowns wasn't in it. I know I did some other songs, and it's just a lot of years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember doing Twin Fairy Tales, and I certainly remember doing Soon Now Later, and You Must Meet My Wife wasn't in at that point. A lot of the stuff in Night Music came in a lot later. Mm. There were some things that were cut that I did. But just that experience was.
Oh my God! To be able to be, he's at the piano and you're singing. My God, it's just so.
But just back to a previous question. I've thought about, because as I say, I either have directed or been in most of his shows, but not necessarily with him involved. So, but I mean, I never did Pacific Overtures,
No.
And I never did Assassins. But boy. Most of the other shows I've done, Into the Woods, I think I mentioned that.
I only have one story to tell about Stephen Sondheim, and it was so darling. When there were chorus calls in the old days, and you were supposed to sing 16 bars.
Yes.
And I did the thing that you never do. I sang a song that he wrote. Goodbye to Blueberry Pie, and so I did Goodbye to Blueberry Pie, and he said
for him.
He said,
oh yeah, they say don't ever sing that.
And so I finished after this. Goodbye to Blueberry Pie. Stop, and he said, "Well, what's the problem, dear?" And the pianist said, "That's 16 bars, Huey. You should know. You wrote it." Oh, he said, "Start from the beginning and go to the end." And I said, "Bye to Blueberry Pie," and he must have had a scratch on his head. So he goes. He's wearing a white shirt. He goes like this, and I think he's telling me to stop. So I stopped.
Oh, God.
And he said, "Now what's the problem, dear?" Now, the whole people that are waiting to get to chorus calls are thinking she's got the part, And I said, "Oh, I thought you said to me, no." He said, "Start at the beginning and go to the end." By the time I got to the end, I was a rag. I mean, here I was. I couldn't handle the fact that I was having this conversation with Steve, and I was doing his song. I mean, it was really hysterical. And he was so sweet about it. I mean, really, because some people would have said, "Get off the stage."
No, he's very dear. I remember a look I got from him when they were doing Bounce or whatever it was called. It was the last show he and Hal were doing.
Uh-huh.
It ended up being Bounce, and I can't remember all the names it went through, but Hal, I think they might have flown me in to audition. That they wanted to see me for it, and so I auditioned for the mother, and of course Steve was going to be there. And knowing that you don't sing a Sondheim song, and that's the majority of my well, no, I sing a lot of other stuff too. But I remember an article I read, and he had a list of he made a list of the songs he wished he'd written. One of which was "Lost in His Arms," and that was the song I felt I did well. So I did it. But this look, he had his hands like this, with this big smile, and when I finished, he just gave me this nod, like yes. It was so loving, and I think I just went out and cried. He was a kind man.
When I asked him if we could use something it was for my one-person show, and Joy had given me his address and everything, and I wrote to him, and he said that I could use it once. I could use it with this production, but not again. And so I was able to do it without paying for it, which was amazing because it costs money to do any of his stuff. So anyhow,
that's great.
But he
writes right back. I mean, everybody that wrote to him, and he mentored. These people wanting to learn more. He'd have them over. I mean, he mentored people all the time. He was very generous and just really
a good guy.
A good guy
in the biz where when it ain't such somebody. Sometimes it's not. There are not so many good guys.
No, I know. People were always a little. He had a way of making you kind of nervous about talking to him, because he was basically very shy.
Mm-hmm.
He was very shy and not very social. But everybody was a little nervous about talking to him.
Oh, sure.
But I got that. Oh my gosh! I had times where Harvey Evans was cooking dinner for me. He said, come over to dinner. And he said, I hope you don't mind, I've invited Steve. And no, that'll be fine. And I remember that night. I mean, we sat and drank wine and just were talking as old friends. It was so comfortable, and it was just amazing.
It's hard with a person who's that much of a star. I mean, so important to the business and everything else.
Well, he's idolized, and of course it became more, and I mean now, just he's God to people, he's he's so brilliant. His mind, when you really start understanding why he made certain choices with his music, I mean it is so profound. Because I've learned more and I teach it. I teach his music a lot, and I've learned to understand it and the nuances and why he made these choices. And then also, if you read any of his books, I mean, just the fact. He is like a mathematician. He said he probably would have been a computer genius or whatever if he hadn't gotten into music.
That happens.
Discovered
with musicians. Yeah.
But just this that everybody knows. But the idea of writing a little night music, all in 3/4 time. Every song is in 3/4 time.
I forgot that.
And I mean that's just minor in terms of the disciplines he put on himself that's in the music. And
what about my favorite, the hat? About
finishing the hat. Oh. Well, and that is pointillism. When he was first working on that, people were saying, critics at that point love to be critical, and they were saying, "Oh, Steve's lost his mind. He's writing blue, 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 red, 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 red. He's lost his mind. What is this?" And my God, it was pointillism. Blue, 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 red, 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 red.
And when you heard Pentenkin singing it a cappella, when they were doing this whole thing about Sondheim, and it was, I think it was during the pandemic, because he was in his garden singing this a cappella.
George misses Marie. George misses a lot. George is alone. George looks around, he sees the park, it is depressing. George looks ahead, George sees the dark, George feels afraid.
Besides that wonderful information that Teri is so schooled in, she has been training young people and in New York City and then now in Palm Springs.
And in the Berkshires.
Yes, so that it's, if you want to have a good teacher, here she is. I mean, it's just wonderful because, can you tell a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. I discovered teaching, and it's been a part of my life my whole career. It's so important. I love it so much, and I learned so much about my own craft by teaching. I learn it's a give and take. As I say, way back in Louisville, I started teaching, and I've been teaching voice my whole life. And I don't say this in a bragging way, but I was taught by some really good teachers, and just, I have this breathing thing that I teach.
What is it that you can you tell us what the breathing?
Well, it's not complicated. I have just a tangible way of getting the air where everyone knows about, getting it to the diaphragm. But then it's what you do after that, which is a matter of, I don't want to talk about it because people could do it and tense the wrong things.
Yeah, of course.
It's very tangible, but it is notes, new notes come out, and people are fine. It's like magic. So I love sharing that and seeing people react.
Mm-hmm.
But I also I taught at AMDA in New York for I don't know, maybe 15 years.
Oh, 15 years, really?
I know, I can't believe that.
That's
Where
amazing.
does the time go? I cannot believe it. But I haven't been teaching there in a couple of years now. And the rewards you get from seeing these students, you say a few things, and if they listen and you see, it's making sense, and you see them grow and get better and
get roles.
Get roles, So that, and then I fairly recently, got a place in Palm Springs, and I spend my winters there and my summers. I gave up my apartment in New York. I don't have that anymore. I can come visit my friends. But I have a place in Stockbridge, Massachusetts.
And it's great. It's a great place.
Oh, it's fabulous. I feel so blessed.
It's right near that hotel. What is that hotel that you took me for dinner there?
The Red Lion Inn.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
But so I teach. As soon as I got to Palm Springs, David Green, who created the Musical Theater University, I mean, he's a remarkable man, and he has started schools, and I taught for him in Capistrano, and he said, "You have to come teach for me." So I've been teaching for David at the Musical Theater University in Palm Springs. And now I also teach there Coachella Valley Repertory. It's they have a new artistic director. It's a wonderful theater, and they have a conservatory program. So
wonderful.
So I teach there. And then in the summer, when I come here, I started teaching at Berkshire Theater Company up in Pittsfield, which is another incredible theater. And so they had this really great summer conservatory, and I taught there for 3 years. And I'm glad to know they're wanting me back. So.
No, of course.
So this is all, and then I teach voice privately, which thank God we did discover, through that terrible time of COVID, that you could teach and communicate through Zoom and WhatsApp and Facebook. And
so you can, in other words, you can give a voice lesson on Zoom.
I do. I have my New York students that I continue to teach.
Oh, great.
And I mean, I have students all over the place, and it works. It works great, because we can communicate, we can hear each other, and with the music, I have them have their songs recorded, the accompaniment there, because there's a little bit of a lag. But I can do all the vocalizing and everything. We can do all that, and I can hear them and see them and correct them and help them. And then they can sing with their own accompaniment, and then I can coach them and make suggestions of what to do with songs. So it works.
It's amazing. It's doing. I do yoga here. Here, I do yoga on Zoom.
Good for you.
Instead
That's
of
such
going-
good discipline, my
Oh,
dear.
of course, I really.
No, I admire that. I can make myself go to the gym, which I do.
Yeah, you do that a lot.
I go to the gym, but I have no discipline for doing it in my home.
Well, I'll tell you what
I
happens
admire that.
on Tuesday night, which is the hardest time for me, 6:15 to 7:30 is the worst difficult time to do yoga. And we have a yoga class, and I have to take it because I do it 3 times a week, and the rest are in the day. And all I'm thinking about is I'm doing down dog and everything else is,
Oh.
I wonder what I can eat for dinner.
Well,
Maybe I
we
could-
We need that carrot at the end. you
Well,
know.
I mean,
I admire you so
well,
much.
You
You are so productive, and I think the series of podcasts you're doing, I mean, good
Well,
for
you know,
you,
I have to
Catherine.
tell you something. I have the most fascinating friends, as you can see. I mean, just having this time with Teri is so wonderful. And the man who is doing the videotape is going like this.
Oh, he's
Sometimes
he's the
he talks
best.
from the front, but I mean, it's so interesting how we. Oh, and we went to Paris together.
Oh, we certainly did.
We almost killed each other, but we went to Paris together.
We did pretty good.
Yeah,
You know, there's always, you know,
it was hard, but it's
we
still.
we live alone, and you know, we both live alone, and then all of a sudden, there were let's see,
3 of us, and that was tough too.
Was it 3 or 4?
No, it was Joy, you, and me, and it was in that nice little, beautiful place. I
Yes,
remember going and opening those windows and seeing and going up to the.
Yeah, it's the other side of Beaumont.
Oh, it was
Yeah, my
so,
friend Maria, we stayed in her place.
Oh, so beautiful.
You know, I'm going back to Paris in November, but we'll talk about
are you
that.
going to teach or just go there?
Okay, so here's this is a fabulous. Well, to me, it's fabulous. I happen to be a huge opera fan. You know, I started out in opera, and I haven't kept up on it so well. But this sounds like, I don't mean to make this sound like a bragging thing, but I'm just so happy and blessed with this. Susan Graham is a major diva, incredible woman and opera diva, and I was a big fan of hers. And through a mutual friend, Jason Graw, who everybody in the world knows, the wonderful, talented Jason, they knew each other well, and I met her. And then she came to see a Sondheim tribute that I was doing in Los Angeles, and I sang Send in the Clowns. And so she was very complimentary and said, you know, I've done this song 1,000 times and I now understand it. Anyway, she called me. We had lunch and I got to know her, and she called me and she said, did you hear the news? And she was cast in the production that they just recently did in New York, the 54-piece orchestration that Jonathan Tunick did. They did it at Lincoln Center, and she was Desiree. And she actually asked me if I would spend some time with her on this, which I did. I mean, she was so fabulous in the role. Well, at any rate, she's going to be doing Daughters of the Regiment at the Paris Opera House.
Oh, I love that opera. It's so
I do
wonderful.
too. And I thought, oh my God, to go to the Paris Opera House and see someone I know up there, you know. So that I said, I'm going to do it. So I'm going in November.
This has been absolutely wonderful, ladies and gentlemen. We've been so lucky to have Teri
Are we
Ralston.
done?
I think we're done, unless she wants to do another one of her things. Do another one of your little things for her. Yes, she should.
I think we've talked that energy, that need out of me.
she's so wonderful, and if you ever have an opportunity to hear her sing, I have her CD.
Yeah.
And if you ever have a chance to go and hear her, you must, because I've seen you at that place in New York. Studio, no, it's on 40 something.
Studio 54.
Is it 54? The one down?
54 below.
54 below.
Oh yeah, I've done a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
there.
And
Oh, well, listen, since you're saying that, since nobody ever buys CDs anymore, thank you for mentioning it.
oh yeah.
It's called I Gotta Get Back to New York.
Oh, and
Nobody-
it's wonderful. How can they get it?
Oh yeah, everywhere. You know, Amazon. It's out there. You know, but
And it's wonderful. You can hear how she
it's
sings.
live. One of the things I love about it, we did it live, and all these people like Steven Schwartz and, you know, the casts of, you know, shows I've done, and they were all in the audience, and there's interplay. You know, that to me is the most fun of the CD.
Yes. Yeah. Oh well, it was wonderful. Just
Pam
listening.
Myers also sings on it. She does a couple songs.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I remember the other stuff. This was great.
Oh, it's great, Catherine.
Great.
You're a great interviewer.
I just listen. It's wonderful. I mean, because I have fascinating people. And then the thing is with fascinating people, they tell you fascinating things, so you can just sit and listen to them.
Well, thank you for letting me ramble on like I
No,
did.
I was very happy because that story is,
I know. I know.
it's so, and it comes from innocence, which is great.
total innocence.
I mean,
I'm still innocent. What can I say?
But to think that you said, well, I want an out. I mean, the whole thing. But then when you said you're not unhappy about any of it, it's great.
Just the other thing that I did that nobody can believe, that I can't believe I did, just quickly. When I was doing company, as I say, I was just out of college, and, you know, I was totally the unknown in New York. I mean, they didn't know if I was going to be any good. You know, I mean, they cast me, but they only gave me a 3-week. They had a 3-week out, so they could get out if I didn't work out. They could get out of the contract.
Mhm.
And but it also meant I had a 3-week out. But I mean, you know, I wasn't, and I had a good agent, Stephen Draper at that point, I think. And so the 3 weeks came, and I did okay. So they wanted to extend it for a year. And so my agent called and said, I have great news. They want to give you a year's contract. And at that point, when you're young, a year is an eternity. Now it's a blink of an eye.
Mhm.
But I said, a year? No way. I refused. I kept saying, I'm not going to sign anything for a year. And he kept saying, Teri, this is a hit show. I can't do anything for a year. Well,
What did he do?
well, he eventually convinced me, but because of that, they went up with the money. not a lot. I mean, why not say it? Well, no, I won't. But at that point, the females were making less than the males in the shows. It was not very much money, and they went up a little bit. But still, I ended up making a little bit more money.
More than anybody else.
And that was the last thing I was trying to do. I just couldn't imagine doing anything for a year.
Oh my.
And now, as I say, it's a blink of an eye. But
It's so
anyway,
interesting.
those were the young years.
This was great. Just
It
great.
was great. My pleasure. Thank you for
Oh,
inviting me for a wonderful conversation.
oh, it's just going to be so wonderful.
Thank you.